Sophie Cunningham just told her own podcast what the Indiana Fever front office hoped no one would notice. Monday afternoon, no PR coach in the room, no agent on speaker. Her co-host asks one question. Was the new Fever contract better than she thought it would be? She pauses. Then she says 3 words. It was close. And every front office person in Indianapolis knew the next 48 hours were about to get ugly. Because what came next wasn't the part Caitlin Clark needed to hear. It wasn't the part Aliyah Boston needed to hear. It was the part Sophie didn't realize she was saying out loud. That Amber Cox in the Indiana front office had handed her a deal she felt frustrated by. And here's the part people miss. Money was never the issue. Length was. Sophie wanted to plant roots in Indiana before next November's free agency cycle. The Fever told her, 1 year, we'll see. The deal Indiana put on the table was $665,000, 1 season. That makes Sophie the 5th highest paid player on the Fever roster. Not bad on paper. But here's the thing. Kelsey Mitchell also signed a 1-year deal this offseason. Mitchell's number? $1.4 million. The supermax. Same length, more than double the money. And here's what changes everything. Mitchell's 1 year exists because that's all the supermax rules allow. Sophie's 1 year? That was a choice. Herb Simon's front office made it. So Sophie did what every player does when a podcast clip starts trending. She tried to walk it back, first on X, then in front of reporters at training camp Tuesday morning. I'm not mad about the money, she wrote. I just wanted more years because I love it here. I wanted to get a house so I could bring my dog and donkey to Indy with me. That last line should tell you everything. She wasn't asking for a raise. She was asking to belong somewhere, to bring her animals, to stop living out of a suitcase. And the Indiana Fever, the franchise that just made the conference finals largely because of this woman's grit, couldn't find their way to a 2nd year. Wednesday morning, Indiana Fever Media Day. General Manager Amber Cox walks up to the microphone. Reporters ask her about Sophie, about the contract, about what Sophie had said on the podcast, and Cox refuses to address her by name. What she does say should make every Fever fan watching this nervous. Cox tells the room, quote, "There are some decisions that we have to make right now because they're impacting what we need to do against a hard cap in the future." That's the front office on the record. Translation? Sophie didn't get the years she wanted because someone else was getting the years instead. That someone has a name, Aliyah Boston. Boston re-signed on a 3-year veteran extension this month, which meant her 2026 salary jumped from $574,000 to a flat $1 million. And that wasn't the whole roster move. Monique Billings, Indiana's new front office, handed Billings a 2-year, $1.6 million deal as a free agent. Billings got years. Boston got years. Sophie got 1. Now look at that lineup side by side, and the message is impossible to miss. The Fever found multi-year money for 2 players this offseason. Sophie wasn't one of them. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night about this roster. The reason Cox said hard cap in the future, that future has a name too. The CBA has a clause that lets a player who's already made all WNBA renegotiate her 4th-year salary up to a veteran number. Boston used it this month. That's how her number jumped to $1 million. The next player eligible for that same jump? Caitlin Clark, 2027. And Clark's number under that clause is going to be larger than anything this league has ever paid anyone. Cox knows that. Herb Simon knows that. Which means every dollar they don't commit to Sophie now, they're keeping in their pocket for Clark in 18 months. But probably it is a gamble. Because here's what Indiana's betting on. They're betting Sophie comes back from a torn MCL, plays a full season, stays healthy, and walks into November willing to sign for whatever scraps the Fever have left after Clark gets paid. And the thing about chemistry, you don't realize what it's worth until it's gone. Sophie wasn't just a glue player last year. She was the enforcer who stood up for Clark when an opponent took a cheap shot. The teammate Clark was hugging on the bench in September when the Fever clinched, the friend who made the locker room feel like home. Indiana didn't sign a guard last year. They built a friendship. And friendships don't survive being told you're worth 1 year. 3 players, 1 nickname. Clark, Lexi Hull, and Sophie. The fans named the trio. The merch followed. The t-shirts, the chants, Clark's face. Hull just signed a multi-year extension. And Sophie, November. 8 months from now, Sophie is a free agent again. She's almost 30 years old. She's been told once already that Indiana isn't ready to commit to her past a single year. If a different team, Toronto Tempo, Portland Fire, Dallas, comes calling next offseason with 2 years, 3 years, an actual home, what's stopping her from leaving? Nothing. The Fever didn't just give Sophie a short deal, they gave themselves a deadline. This isn't the first time the Indiana Fever asked a player to plant roots in this city. Tamika Catchings spent 15 years in this uniform. Drafted in 2001, retired in 2016, Hall of Fame, the 2012 championship, and a statue outside the building. Catchings could have left for bigger markets, bigger paychecks, more glamorous teams. None of that happened because Indiana made her feel like she belonged. Sophie was asking for a tiny fraction of what Catchings got. 3 years, a house, her donkey, the chance to belong to one place, and Herb Simon's front office said no. May 9th, the Indiana Fever opened the season at home against the Dallas Wings. Azzi Fudd walks into Gainbridge Fieldhouse on opening night. Paige Buchers walks in beside her. The PA announcer introduces Sophie Cunningham as a returning starter on a 1-year deal. The crowd cheers. The cameras roll. Stephanie White draws up the same sets she ran last year. And somewhere in a luxury box high above the floor, Herb Simon and Amber Cox watch Sophie play, knowing they've got until November to figure out whether they ever wanted her in Indy at all, or whether they just needed a body for one season. She wanted to bring her donkey. She wanted to buy a house. She wanted 3 years. The Indiana Fever gave her one. And on May 9th, when the lights come up at Gainbridge, the Fever better hope the woman they didn't fully commit to doesn't play like she's auditioning for somewhere else. Because that's exactly what this season just became.